Welcome to Altar of the Demo Gods. If you're wondering what advice from two experienced sales engineers sounds like, it's a little like this.
Welcome back to Altar of the Demo Gods. I'm Keith Wilson, joined by my co-host, John Morton. John, how are you doing tonight?
Aye, Captain. I've been looking for a new phrase since I use the hoy hoy and whatnot. So
Yeah, John's on a search for a catchphrase. I think he wants to set up a merch store already, and he's hoping for the right catchphrase. He just
the
hasn't found it
keychain
yet.
for Altar of the Demo Gods. Yeah,
Yeah, you'll figure it out. I have confidence in you. You find your catchphrase.
We're getting close.
So, in last week's episode, we talked about demos. Believe it or not, here on Altar of the Demo Gods, we talked about how to present demos, and I think we spent most of our time talking about preparation. Being prepared for a demo is, to me, probably the most important part. If you're not prepared when you go in, especially for the longer, more specific demo, then you're going to be lost, right? You're going to drift. You're going to lose your audience. It's not going to go your way.
If you're in technical sales and you're not prepared for the demo, you failed. What's that guy's name? Arley. You know, that movie, it was like a military army movie.
Arley Army. You're talking about Full Metal
guy,
Jacket. Yeah.
Full Metal Jacket, right? Yeah. Gomer Pyle. Private Pyle, you are wrong. If you are not ready for a demo and you are in technical sales, you do not belong to be here.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So prepare. So we talked a bit about your setting the hook demo, and then your more focused, specific customer specific demo. If you didn't hear last week and you're interested in hearing what we had to say, go back, listen to episode 10 of Alter the Demo Gods. In this week's episode, we're going to hit on something that we're going to talk about more in depth, something that we hit on last week, because we talked about presentation skills as part of a demo. In this episode, I want to talk more about just presentation skills in general, right? How do you keep an audience engaged? How do you make a presentation that leaves a lasting impact? Without taking off your clothes. I mean, that'll leave a lasting impact.
That will leave an impact. Oh, if anybody's ever met me in person, that will leave an impact.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that the first step in doing this should be no surprise, and that's planning and preparation. I cannot overstate enough how important it is to be prepared. All of those talks that you see that look like they're just off the cuff, they're not. If you ever see an SE doing a demo and it looks like he's doing something off the cuff, but it's like tailored and engaging the audience, and he may even have some natural banters or pauses or jokes built in there, like, it's planned, it's rehearsed. I remember when Charles and I worked together, when he was my sales rep and I was his SE. Remember, he was an SE before he was a sales rep. I could start the demo and I could look over at him and he'd be just mimicking the words with his lips that I'm saying, because I could stop talking at any point and he could continue on, right? It was that rehearsed, because the same main points are made, just custom tailored for the audience. But that all has to do with planning, preparation.
I say it probably every episode. The hardest, easy job you'll ever have is in sales. And what people don't understand is they think it's buying people drinks, buying people dinners, smiling, being handsome like Keith with his well-whitened teeth, charming. If that's all there was, everybody would make it. But to Keith's point, the real sellers, technical and, otherwise, are prepared. They understand what they're going into. They know what they're asking for. They know the next step. They know all the details to how we got here. We know who's who in the zoo. It's not just a simple wine and dine, right? It's a very methodical process, to Keith's point. Sorry, Keith, just had to double
Yeah.
down, baby.
So when you're putting a presentation together, you're not just tossing things, just willy nilly into a slide deck. You're not going to go, okay, I'm going to grab this slide from over here and toss it in here, and then this one shows this metrics and how we do this thing, and I'm going to toss it in here. No, you're telling a story, and you're
Yes.
telling a story to a specific audience. And in order to tell that story, you need to understand who your audience is. And God, I feel like a record on repeat because we say this an awful lot, and what their pain is. What is it that keeps them awake at night? What is it that stresses them out at work? And how is your whatever you're selling going to solve that? Whatever
Yeah.
you're talking about, how is it interesting to them? Right? So you need to plan, and you need to be able to figure out who's going to be listening, what roles are you pitching to, and how are you going to tell that story that's going to land on their ears best. John, what are some tips that you have for planning?
Well, planning. So, number one, never have a meeting for meeting's sake, right? So, when you have a meeting, and these are basics of sales, I think everybody needs to learn this. I'm mad about it. Again, I've been fired up for like 3 episodes. Keith's been listening to it. Meetings should have an agenda. That agenda should be explicitly 3 to 5 bullet points of what we're trying to get out of it. This carries over into planning. Planning is that. What are we trying to do, and how are we trying to accomplish it, and what does good look like? In planning, it's that exact scenario. What are we going in here to do? If that works well, what's the outcome? If it doesn't work well, what are we going to do? So those are kind of like the most basic high level of kind of how I think about it, Keith.
Sure. Now, you've done your planning. You've prepared this killer talk, and you get up on stage and you're boring. You're monotonous. You're, as Charles once referred to somebody, a human quaalude. That's a problem. Your presentation can be awesome as hell, can be super compelling. But if you yourself are a bad presenter, you're doing a disservice to your presentation. So when you're delivering, I can talk at least a little bit from my public speaking experience about things that work for me. One, keep what you're saying short and concise, right? So don't go on tangents unless it's relevant to the audience. Two, tell a story, and we just said it in presentations, right? Tell a story. We as humans have it naturally ingrained in us to listen to stories. I forget the book that I read, but it argued that we did that as a part of evolution, as survival, because you had to be able to decipher a story by looking at tracks in the snow to know whether you were chasing after, a cow to slaughter for dinner, or if you were being chased by some sort of saber-toothed tiger or something, right? You had to be able to identify and understand a story. So our brains are wired to understand stories. So if you can keep your delivery as though you're telling a story, it helps. Something to keep in mind is the average human attention span is really only about 20 minutes, right? So it's hard to engage beyond that, and it drives me nuts when like conferences want you to speak for 45 minutes. I don't know if how much you've had to deal with that. So in the instances where I've had to speak for 45 minutes, I've tried to weave a story through. I gave one talk on cybersecurity and doing more with less, by comparing it and talking through the Battle of Thermopylae, which is, if you've seen the movie 300, that's the Battle of Thermopylae. It was the Spartan 300 that stopped that slowed down the Persian invasion of Athens, I think, was where they were headed first, right? So I told this story, which is a very interesting, compelling story, and I wove it throughout the presentation to help keep the audience moving with me, right? Instead of slowing down and people nodding off in the technical stuff that maybe they got a little lost in. Everybody can follow a story. especially about the Spartan 300 because they are badasses, right?
Yes.
Yes. Controversial answer, John.
Oh, considering I'm a USC Trojan, yes. Story for
So
another day.
I will tell you what my biggest fear was when I got accepted to give my first public talk ever
Yeah.
was
You're going to show up in your underwear like one of those high school dreams?
no, just that I was going to be very unconfident and the entire audience would know it. And
Oh, legitimate. Like that
to
imposter syndrome thing, but real.
yeah.
Okay.
And to quote Charles Herring again, because he'd given plenty of public speaking, and he's a mentor of mine too. So at the time, at the time I still do. I look up to Charles, right?
Right.
He I told him about it, and he was like, Keith, you only have to be the smartest person in the room. That's it. What he was saying was you don't literally have to be the smartest person in the room. That's going to be impossible. But pretend like you are, because nobody's going to question you, right? And it's true. I've got the microphone in front of me. As long as I'm not spouting outright bullcrap,
Nonsense. Yeah.
nonsense, I'm the expert in the room just because of that given authority of I am the speaker. Here's what I'm presenting.
I like that advice, Keith.
Yeah. So
Again,
if you walk,
Charles ringing true all the way through.
he's a modern day philosopher. But yeah, it was go in with the confidence that you're the smartest person in the room and you'll come off that way. And I did. At least I think I did. I got good marks and good reviews from that talk, and I've been invited to do many more talks ever since. So I think it worked
Yeah.
out well.
Not to your point, Keith. If I could double down on that for a second, just to highlight what you're saying. All right. So I think a lot of the problem with what people have in sales, technical and likewise, is that there are folks that have inherent talent. And I'll compare this to the NFL. So some folks don't like football, but just bear with me. Okay. Some folks have inherent talent. They were just born with it. They're charming, they're beautiful, they're handsome, they're attractive. Their voice is the perfect tone and texture, and it is just desirable by their audience. I call that inherent talent. Now, I'm going to say less than 95% of us are going to qualify as that Tom Brady-esque sort of thing. That doesn't mean you're not going to be good at what you're doing.
Right.
That just means that person has that inherent skill. What others have, like my man Peyton Manning used to be a quarterback for the Denver Broncos. He has a forehead about a mile long, not the most fit character. If you saw him, you probably wouldn't even know he was an NFL quarterback, but he's won consistently because he's done all the right things right. To kind of Keith's point, he knows what he's good at. He's good at the basics. He's good at the fundamentals. He's kind of studied and practiced how to captivate my audience. Now, why am I saying this? Now, Tom Brady, everybody likes to see him in a room, see him on the cover of GQ. Why not? Sure, you can have that. Peyton Manning, though, in my mind, he's more of my style. What I mean by that is the folks I've met who have done really well in your kind of case and point there, Keith, of presenting, you keep it short, you keep it concise, you be true to yourself, and you sprinkle in a tiny bit of humor. It's going to go a long way. I used to have my mentor. His name was Ulrich. Maybe someday we'll have him on the show. True to form, German. Now, if anybody's ever engaged with Germans, they don't inherently tell charmingly funny stories. It's not how they are. But the way he delivered information was so matter of fact and honest and concise and accurate. And then he'd always throw in these weird German jokes that people just ate up. It was amazing to see. Now, Ulrich, don't get hurt if you call me. I don't mean to call you no Tom Brady, but the way he delivered this message and the way he was accurate about what he was delivering, he captivated his audience in his own way, taking advantage of what he's had, his German accent, his lack of humor, being a dry German. But the data he delivered, it was so captivating, Keith. It was amazing. You have to see it.
Yeah. So another mistake I see people make, and it's usually new presenters speaking publicly, and I even make this mistake. It's very easy to do, and it's cadence. It's
Hmm.
talking really fast because you're nervous.
Let me just get it out. I call
Yeah,
it
let me just
diarrhea of the mouth. Diarrhea of the mouth.
the faster I can speak and click through this presentation, the sooner it'll be over, and then I won't be dead anymore, right? Like I won't be experiencing this fright and this anxiety of public speaking. It's the only way I've seen to break that is to rehearse, practice your
Yes.
presentation, right?
Yeah.
To go in with that confidence, to know what you're saying, so that you know how to pace things out. You've timed yourself. You know you're not going to go over. You know you're not going to go way too short. You know where your pauses are. You know where people might ask questions. You know where you may call an audible and insert a joke. But you've practiced it and you feel confident, and that allows you to speak in a way that people can understand. And when you slow down your speech and speak like I'm purposefully doing now, and you speak deliberately, people pay more attention. You come off as more confident. You come off more as an expert, and it's helpful in getting your point across.
I know we've kind of shifted, Keith, from my our acronym of the day to John Morton's $1 to $2 million tidbits of the day.
Okay.
But I'm going to reemphasize the $1 million tidbit of today is kind of what you're saying. It's not only slowing down, the most smartest, is that a real word?
I
Smartest
don't
and
think so.
articulate,
I think it's most smart
most smart and
or
articulate.
smartest, but it's not most smartest.
We're going with Smarties. The point,
Alrighty.
the smartest and most articulate people I know that are the most successful in negotiating and selling have the ability to manipulate silence. Not only slowing down what we're saying, but capitalizing on that awkward silence. So even in captivating your audience and doing that pause like I just did is the most powerful thing you can do. If you ever noticed when you talk to certain people and you ask them a question, very simple. What's your name? What's your birthday? What do you like to drink? If you wait 1 or 2 more seconds, you will captivate them more than you could ever imagine. So, capitalizing on that weird, awkward silence, those who master it are beyond successful. So,
What a
that's that
great
$2 million tidbit.
That's a great engagement tip, right? So I want the audience to think about how you felt when John just did that. When John made that dramatic pause and he came back into it. Did you feel yourself being sucked into the conversation where that pause builds up that anxiety to go, what's next? What's next? What's next? Then he speaks and I'm there and I'm listening. And it's that's another technique for keeping your audience
Practice,
engaged.
baby.
Yeah.
Try it with your dog, try it with your cat, try it with your wife, your girlfriend, and your mom, and your wife. I don't know, maybe you got all three. Try it out, see how it feels.
Another great way to keep people engaged is through soliciting questions or asking questions. Now, as an instructor, I get to experience what we all did in school, and I get to see it with adults. And that's where I throw out a question and everybody's afraid to raise their hand. And it's literally a question that I gave them the answer to minutes before.
Mm.
Minutes before people even wrote it down. Or they could look in the guide that I've given them and get the exact answer. But
So proud to cough it up.
nobody wants to raise their hand, so we sit in silence and we wait. And we play the waiting game.
Mm.
Somebody's going to answer. It's happened every time.
Every time, man. The art of silence. There's probably a book on that, man. If we were smart enough to do the research, I might have looked it up, but I bet you there is.
Well, I mean, there's lots of books on presenting and skills like that. And so another sort of little nugget of help, and it's something that I've done before and I need to get back involved in, is Toastmasters.
Oh,
If
man, I've
you're
heard about that.
if you want to be good at presenting, go to Toastmasters. They're going to you're gonna do exercises regularly that make you uncomfortable. Not like anything bad, but in that public speaking uncomfortable to get you out of your shell, get you thinking on your feet, and to kick bad habits in public speaking. I remember they had an counter, right? So whenever you would talk, it's somebody's job to count how many times you said or right? Because
Wow, I didn't even know
those are
that still
fillers.
existed. We should reach
Yeah.
out to them as a sponsor, Keith. I didn't even know that.
I'm pretty sure they're a nonprofit, so that's something we'd give away for them. But yeah, so highly recommend Toastmasters if you're looking to increase your presentation skills. How do you deal with questions that are off topic?
So I'm kind of like a comedian in that sense. One thing that, again, I'm bringing my bias of cybersecurity into this. 90% of every cybersecurity room is, to Keith's point, smarter than me. And they love to prove it in a public audience where nobody even knows who they are. That aside, I digress. If we have any psychologists who can help me get through this anger I have, please call us or email us. But what I normally do when I have a question that's off topic or just completely off base, I'll normally say, you know what, that's a really great point. It'd be great if you and I could think about that offline. Is that something we can do? I'll ask it abruptly and honest as that. Like, I want to answer your question. I don't have time to do it now. I want to, talk about what I'm talking about. But can you and me personally, settle this right after my prezo? I'm going to wait for you. Can we chat? 99% of the time, that's pretty accurate, because either they're going to respond out of anger and hang up on the call and leave, or they will honestly wait. But it's addressing it up front and saying, I appreciate you. I hear what you're saying. Can you and I individually talk about this following what I'm doing now? For the most part, that works.
Yeah, I mean, you can also try and get them to address specifically how it relates to your talk. So I've had this happen in public speaking engagements
Mm-hmm.
where I've just finished a talk on whatever, and people are asking me what my thoughts are on quantum cybersecurity. And I'm talking like 5, 6 years ago, where I'm like, quantum cyber? I don't know. Like, well, talk to me in the future. Did I talk about that in here? But basically I'd go, I'm not really sure what you're getting at, but could you tell me
Right.
which part of where my presentation did that link up for you? Right. Because sometimes there's a linkage there and you go, oh, okay, thank you for clarifying, and you can move on. But sometimes they'll just prove to themselves and others of like, well, I guess it's kind of off topic.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's more to the point where I try to, I'm a fan of, like, in leadership, there's a concept of praise in public, punish in private. That's
Sure.
exactly all I'm doing. If it's something I might like, to your point, if I think I could play off it, I might praise him in public and ask him for more. But 99% of the time, someone like that, I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to punish you in private. That sounds terrible, but this is the concept of, let's take this offline because this isn't the forum to deviate from the message I was trying to deliver to my audience. So just from experience, that's what I've gone with.
So what do you do differently? Because I'm sure you still, you do a lot of your meetings remotely, but I'm sure you still do some in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
what do you
Oh,
do?
in person's
What do you
best.
what do you do differently between the two?
Yeah, like I've said
How do you
before.
adapt to the different environments?
Yeah, like I pointed out, man, and it's worth reemphasizing, right? Tell them once, show them, tell them again. That's my style of teaching. Is in person is the absolute best. Although I don't got that Tom Brady looks, I got the Tom Brady charm in certain environments. In person, I love engaging with people, hearing their stories, building rapport, building relationships, doing all the things right, buying people dinners, buying them drinks, even if it's just a fine water, whatever it may be. What's new about post COVID, though, is absolutely how do we engage with those folks that are on mute, not on camera. And I guarantee you, 45% engaged in what I'm saying. I try to get them involved. I try to get them to tell me what you care about. Because if you don't tell me what you care about, and this is the value of a tech seller, I can't show you in a demo anything that matters unless you tell me what matters. Use your words, Mr., Mrs., they customer. What do you care about? If I don't know, we're all wasting our time. So can you please, even if it's in text, in the message in chat, Slack, Zoom, whatever, tell me what you want and I will show you. And then I'll pause. You saw it. Is this what you were looking for? So asking, validating, and then pausing to confirm are those three things.
That's awesome. That's some great advice, John. So, in this episode, we went over a lot of stuff on presentation, and I think there's a lot there. There's a lot more to talk about, and there's so many different aspects of presentation we can get into. Again, I came at it from the public speaking angle, where John came at it from the sales engineer angle, and there's so many situations where what you're presenting is going to change and vary. So I think that opens up us that allows us to have some future conversations around presentations in different scenarios. Now, next week we're going to get even more deep into this, where we're going to talk about the power of storytelling. I'm excited about this because I love stories. I once had an LLC that was a marketing company that I called, and I'm still very proud of this, called it Aesop Grimm, named after the two most famous storytellers, the brothers Grimm and Aesop's from Aesop Fables. So to me, like, storytelling is it fits with so many things, and it's pure entertainment aside from that too. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends about us. Talk about us online. Link up with us on LinkedIn and follow us on X and all the other things. I don't even know what we're on at this point, but if you want to find out what we're on, if you want a centralized location where you can learn everything about Alter the Demo Gods, you can go to demogodspod.com. If you have questions for us, want to know more about the show, you can email us at demogodspod@gmail.com. That's demogodspod@gmail.com. Again, check us out on YouTube. Get us wherever you get your podcasts. John, it's been great conversation with you. And thanks to everyone else for listening. We'll see you next week on Altar of the Demo Gods.